So our event for today will be from starting now till 5 p.m. and we'll have it broken down with the first hour from 3:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. will be the facilitated Q&A session with the panelists that we have today. And then the last 30 minutes, it's open for student Q&A. So if you all have questions, and I'll talk a little bit more about how we're going to facilitate that piece. So this event was in collaboration between the Career Center, Humanities in the Arts Student Success Center, as well as the Chicanx Latinx Student Success Center. And we'll be kind of introducing ourselves, those of us that collaborated on this event, and then how we can also support you all. So, navigating here. So here is our panelists for today. So we have Russell Story, who is a concept artist from Industrial Light and Magic. Jasmine Garcia, who is a creative communications manager at Connect. Fernando Perez, which is a community media manager at Create TV. And Ray Furuta, which is a music professor at Santa Clara University, as well as Lynn Lewis, who is a wedding photographer entrepreneur. So we're glad to have our 5 panelists here today, kind of sharing their background, their story, their career path, and some tips and advice with you all. And so, kind of segueing, we want to first share some of the resources that each of the centers that collaborated together to put on this event that we have available to you all as students. So I myself, my name is Sandra De Leon. I'm the career counselor for diverse students and I work at the Career Center. And just kind of want to share some of the services and resources that we have available to you all. I highly encourage you all to visit our website at sjsu.edu/careercenter. We help students with a lot of different career topics, ranging from exploring majors or careers to searching for jobs, internships, help with your resume, cover letter, preparing for interviews, considering graduate school. Those are some of the main topics that we help students with. And just given right now the challenging time, we understand that this can be a very stressful time, especially for some of you that are maybe graduating this semester or soon to be graduates, or even those of you that are, looking to apply to jobs or internships. We are, as a career center, constantly staying updated with the companies that are still hiring or where you can look for remote internships. So again, if this is something that you need support with, please, reach out to us. You can make an appointment through SJSU Handshake with a career counselor. But I also want to make you aware of some of our Career Center apps that you can find by following this pathway here. Students and then Career Center apps, one of them being Handshake, but we also have several other online apps that can support you with your career development. And then I already introduced myself, and again, I mentioned that appointments are scheduled through sjsu.joinhandshake.com. Just given the current situation, these appointments are, until further notice, virtual appointments. And then I'll let my colleague, Judy, introduce herself.
So hi, everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name is Judy Garcia. I am the career counselor liaison for the College of Humanities and the Arts. And Sandra and I and our staff, we're happy to help you, and we're here. We're serving students online now via Zoom or email or whatever is convenient, and we just want you to know that we're here to assist you with your career planning needs, and hopefully the panelists, our guest panelists, will share some really good information with you today to inspire you and get you motivated for your own career planning. I want to thank all the panelists again for coming, and thank all of the students that are here for coming today.
Awesome, thank you, Judy. And then moving along, we also want to make you aware of the Humanities and Arts Student Success Center and two of the advisors that also collaborated with us for this event, and I'll let them introduce themselves and kind of mention how you can connect with them all.
Hi everyone, I'm Sandy. I'm sure you all are familiar with the name and the email. Welcome to the H&A virtual career panel today. We're so happy to have you. I'm an academic and a career specialist with the H&A Student Success Center. So if you're not familiar, we're the advisors whom you can go to for anything non-major related academic advising questions. So whether it be GE planning, graduation planning, the new credit, no credit policy that just came out, feel free to reach out to us anytime you have questions about that. And with me, I also have my colleague. I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton to her.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie Garcia, academic advisor also in the H&A Success Center. Welcome today to this wonderful event. Hopefully you guys get a lot out of this and ask a lot of questions. Like Sandy said, you hopefully have seen both of our faces before if you came into the center. And so we hope to be able to help you out during this time and then when we get back into school. And so definitely follow us on our website and use our Google form if you'd like to get in contact with us. And then also, if you haven't seen already, I posted a little note to everyone, just letting you know to please sign the Google form as we will be using that for attendance purposes. And so if you can go ahead and do that as well, I'll be sending out reminders every so often. So just happy that everybody's here and able to take advantage of this opportunity.
Awesome, thank you, Sandy and Stephanie. And then also want to point out one of our other centers that collaborated with us to help put on today's event, which is our Chicanx Latinx Student Success Center. And I'll have Lily introduce herself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Lily Pinedo-Gancay. I serve as the program director, as Sandra said, for our Chicanx Latinx Student Success Center. And it's so awesome to see 56 folks engaging with us this afternoon. So thank you so much for being here. And one way that the Centro can assist as you think about your next steps, whether you're already on your way out, I know we have quite a few graduating seniors, but those of you who are maybe sophomores, even maybe freshmen, and you're still trying to figure things out, we fostered really strong partnerships with a lot of our alumni. And so we also can help support you in that way to connect you with a lot of the alumni. We have alumni who've recently graduated to folks who've been out for quite a few years and are a little bit more established in their careers. So whether you want more information about grad school or even just a career in a specific area, we have those networks and those connections. So please feel free to reach out to me or to Elisa, and we'd be more than happy to connect you. I'm also including a link for the Latino Alumni Network for anybody who may be interested. This is a great way to connect and stay connected with your fellow Spartans post San Jose State. And I'd be more than happy to speak to that a little bit later.
Awesome, thank you, Lily. So I just want to also, as most of you might be aware, but we also have a health advisories resource available to you all through the SJSU website as a way for you all to stay updated and current with any COVID-19 information, resources, and updates. We, again, understand that this is a challenging time for us all, and kind of as students, you're all adjusting to having to switch to classes being online, everything pretty much being virtual. But again, we just want to let you all know that we're here for you. We're here to support you, the different centers, the different campus partners and departments to provide you with any support that you may need. So we hope that you do take advantage of these resources, during this time, even if it's virtual. Great, so moving along, just a few house rules I want to briefly go over. As Stephanie mentioned, she'll be sharing the Google form in the chat box about, ever so often in case we have other participants trickling in. Please fill out the form. It's our way of tracking attendance. So it's just a quick form. You put in your email address and student ID number. I think that those are the only two fields in there. We are asking during this virtual event if you could keep your audio and video muted, although we would love to see your lovely faces and hear your beautiful voice, just given kind of the nature of, you know, a virtual event. We want to provide, you know, kind of the least amount of distractions, and so we could focus on our panelists here too while they're speaking. And then if, again, we want to make sure we have time, and we will dedicate time to all of you. If you have any questions that you want to ask, and we highly encourage those, this time is for you to be able to get the most out of it. So please, if you have a question, don't shy away from asking that question. We're asking that you type your question on the chat box, and we will be having kind of Sandy moderating those questions. And then at the end, any questions that didn't get answered during the panel discussion, I will read those aloud for panelists to address. If you do have a question that is that you'd like to ask of a particular panelist, please do include in the chat box who that question is addressed to, or if that question is addressed to everyone. So great. So that is just the logistics for today. And then I'm gonna go ahead and before we get started with the questions, I probably should have our panelists introduce themselves. Gonna go ahead and stop the sharing here, probably put it on, give me just a moment. Bear with me as I'm also, this is my first virtual career panel I'm facilitating, so learning as I go along the way. So just gonna share here. So again, these are the pictures of our panelists here, but I'm gonna go ahead and let them introduce themselves and kind of let them share their videos so you can see them all. So I'll go ahead and why don't we get started with Lynn?
Sure. Hello. My name is Lynn Lewis. So I studied psychology and graphic design at UC Davis, and I did my master's in counseling at San Jose State, so I'm an alumni. My current job title is that I'm actually a wedding photographer, so I'm the wedding photographer of my own business, Lynn Lewis Photography. And what I currently do, I think that also is pretty obvious. I'm a wedding photographer, business owner, so I basically run my own business and shoot weddings, engagements, proposals, all that fun stuff.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I didn't realize. Fernando, I'll have you go next. If you could please introduce yourself. Oh, you're muted.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fernando Perez. Majored in radio, television, film, and theater at San Jose State University. Graduated in 2008. So time has really flown by. And my current position is a community media manager at Create TV San Jose. I'm sort of a jack of all trades. That department really prepares you for a lot of different sort of careers. I chose to work in nonprofits.
I'm so sorry, I keep forgetting to unmute myself. Thank you for that, Fernando. If we can have Russell introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Russell Story. So I went to school at first at Sierra College, not really knowing what I wanted to do. Went to San Jose State and was a animation illustration major there, and now I work at Industrial Light and Magic in the film industry, and I am a concept artist there. We kind of come up with some early designs for stuff in film. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And then up next, Ray.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ray Furuta. I studied in New York City, where I was a music performance major for all of my degrees. Currently, I am a concertizing solo flutist, as well as a professor of music at Santa Clara University. As a musician, I essentially am a freelancer, but I am fortunate to tour all over the world, primarily as a soloist, but also sometimes in different groups that contract me to play with them. And as a professor, I teach primarily topics in ethnomusicology, which is like world music. And I do career and professional development. I also do music and social justice curriculum at Santa Clara University.
Great, thank you, Ray. And then Jasmine?
Hello. First of all, everyone is so cool with their creative jobs. I'm Jasmine, and I was a public relations major. And now I do creative communications for a company called Chicanx. And what we do is we pair these amazing marketing and communications contractors to these amazing clients at companies like Salesforce and you know all the big companies around the Bay Area. I don't do the actual pairing. I do the creative part. So I'm constantly writing and creating, and I talk a lot, right? I do these panels, I do some career development. And I also manage our pro bono programs. So I look at, I do a lot of workshops with students on campus around career development or how to tell your story. And yeah, that's what I do now.
Awesome, thank you, Stephanie, and thank you all. So I'm gonna go ahead and trying to like toggle here between the slides and the video view. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch back to the PowerPoint here. So for pretty much, I think most of you kind of mentioned your name, your major, company name, and what you do in your current position, but I'll kind of let you all share a little more in the second question here. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So our second question here for the panelists is, how did you land the job you have today, and what interested you about the role? And I'm just gonna, as I mentioned, the first two questions I am asking all the panelists to kind of share here. So I'm just gonna kind of go down the line here as I'm seeing people on my screen. So why don't we start with you first, Ray?
So my work as a musician has just been ongoing since I entered the professional world, which I would consider to be 18 years old. But in terms of like my tangible job as a professor of music, I got the job. How do I want to say this? Sorry. So being a professor was something that interested me very early on. And so to be a professor in any field, there are several steps that you have to take in order to do that. And one of those is get your doctorate for the most part. And so when planning my collegiate career, knowing that I was going to get my doctorate was there for me to work towards academically. And that's what initially made me eligible to actually get a professorship. In between all of that, of course, there is the work that I do that makes me beyond just educationally eligible. And so, and that's a lot of stuff that I did. So how I actually got the job, I applied for an open position that I was eligible for, and had to go through an interview process, and the rest is history.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray, for sharing with us all. And I'm going to have Jasmine go next.
So I landed my job in a very interesting way. So I was working, well, actually, let's backtrack. So I was a sophomore, backtrack to me in college. And I actually joined a PR society, and so, which is just like an organization for your major. So I joined, and my first meeting I saw, who is now my boss, I saw this speaker. She was literally no shoes, sitting on an ottoman, crisscross applesauce, and she was telling her story about how she created her business, and I was just kind of intrigued right off the bat. And so we connected, and you know, it was more of like me, sophomore, saying, hi, thank you for coming, blah, blah, blah. So then later that semester, what happened was we were doing a promo video for PRSSA, and we had to talk about who our favorite speaker was. And I talked about Renee, who is my boss now, but then was a speaker that was on the ottoman, crisscross applesauce with no shoes. And I talked about her, and I just said, you know, I just loved her energy, and the fact that she was a woman and owned her own business and has been successful for, you know, 20 years. So then they ended up publishing this video, and Renee, my boss, she ended up seeing it, and we stayed connected from all of the rest of college. And then fast forward to me graduating, I had my internship, and I was ready to leave and end and kind of go somewhere else. And I found her at a networking event. We just ran into each other. And she was like, oh, what are you up to? And I said, oh, I'm kind of looking for a new job. And she was like, oh, I may have an opening. And so the rest is history. What interested me about the role was the creative liberty that I had. Working at a small company, you get so much flexibility and so much creative freedom. And so I think that was like the most interesting part to me.
Thank you, Jasmine. We'll have, can I have from Lynn go next?
So I never thought I would become a photographer. I took my first photography class in high school, and since then it was kind of always just a hobby. I didn't pursue it in college. I didn't pursue it in grad school. And so I actually didn't even really think about it until I think I started this about 3 years ago. And this was after I got married, which kind of obviously inspired some of it. I started doing a couple engagements, and then I started doing weddings after that. And this was all while I was still working full-time at San Jose State in what is now Judy's role. And so I was still working full-time as a counselor while I was doing weddings, engagements on the side. And really learning a lot about how to run a business and how to create a website. And a lot of that had kind of come from my design background already. So that did help a lot as I was really trying to build a business that really represented like what I wanted to do. But even through that, I think I never really thought of it as a full-time career. And I honestly kept telling people I wouldn't do it full-time because I was worried about the stress and the pressure of running a business and being self-employed. But it grew quite quickly. And so last July, I was quite overwhelmed. I was doing both basically full-time. And I did get to a point where I was pretty confident in being able to run my own business and being able to do this full time. So I finally made the jump and quit last July. And so this is, I guess, almost not yet, but almost a full year being full-time wedding photographer. And that's where I am today. And then what interests me about it is I think a lot of people do like the idea of running your own business. You know, you get to choose your own hours. We have off seasons, so we get times where you're not working as much, and of course times that you're working a lot more. But you do get a lot more flexibility. You don't have to go to the office every day. And then I think just at the heart of it, it's actually like, I say it's a blend of everything I've actually studied and learned. It isn't so much a different career path than what I thought in the beginning. It was a blend of like, you know, the design things that I had learned about like what looks good, what's pleasing to the eye. It was a blend of psychology and how people view the world. And it was even a blend of counseling because I'm working a lot with clients in a very personal relationship in a personal way. And so that I think is really what is so great about being a wedding photographer is that you do get to do a lot of different things. It's not just creating art, but it's working with people as well. And I think that's also a big part of what I love about it is that you're not only just kind of creating these really beautiful photos, but you're also being able to build relationships and being able to capture memories that has a lot of that human connection to it. So it feels a lot more than just like a picture on the screen. It's a lot of relationship building and things like that that make it a lot more rewarding.
Thank you, Lynn, for sharing that career path. If I can have kind of Russell respond to the question next.
Yeah, so I actually landed my job at Industrial Light and Magic through the Shrunken Headman Club at San Jose State. But to go back a little, way before that, I had initially just been like a huge Star Wars fan and everything, and I did a lot of art on the side. I did a lot of 3D modeling on the side, and a lot of the courses I took early on in college were just kind of to fulfill my, you know, fun passion, not necessarily going in a certain direction. But I had a professor tell me that, you know, you could do art like this for a job. So ever since then, my goal was to get into Lucasfilm to, you know, do art. And when I came to San Jose State, I actually found a couple of professors who had worked there. And sure enough, by the end of my 4-5-ish years there, I had the opportunity to get to know them and kind of network with them over the time that I was there. And I actually went out to a extracurricular Shrunken Headman function, and my professors knew that I loved ILM and I loved Lucasfilm. And so they introduced me to someone who was actually leaving their position at ILM. And because of that, I was able to get an interview with them, and shortly after got hired on as a concept artist, and I've been with them for about 5 years. So yeah.
Great, thanks for sharing. And then last but not least, Fernando.
Hi, everyone. So the current job I'm in now, actually, I just started January 6th. I haven't been there too long. But where I am today, well, actually, if I don't tell you about where I came from, you won't know why I'm where I am today. Creativity is actually one of the like platforms that pushed me into the career when I was in my early 20s. And now working there, the organization has grown. I've grown, and you know, a lot of my skills and interests are fit for this role. So I'm a San Jose native, born and raised here, went to a performing arts high school, sort of always been involved in some form of arts, you know, dance, theater maybe. So a lot of that exposed me to just enjoying, just seeing that people can sort of enjoy working in the arts. So I did some dance, I did some theater, I did some animation, and when I got to San Jose State, the radio, television, and film department, I gravitated towards the music department, the radio department. And I had a role there for 4 years, managing the radio station or managing a department in the radio station. And it really gave me a push, like sort of to get involved. So I started helping organize on campus with different social justice organizations, different community groups, by giving them a chance to, jump on the airwaves and tell them about their story. And so I've always been really motivated by giving folks a chance to share, resources, share events, share what's going on, because I think that's something, at least from my perspective, the community I grew up in are sort of lacking in access. So after the radio station actually remained at San Jose State for a couple more years, they allowed me to be a director of the department for a couple more semesters as an alumni. And it launched me forward into meeting some friends that we're really close now. We actually started producing events in San Jose, started to create spaces for community to celebrate music, to celebrate culture, to bring people together around celebrating our community, sort of the diversity in our community. In 2008, when I graduated, actually, I just thought I needed to make some money, and I just got the first job I could find. I worked for a garbage company as a debt collector, and it was just not made for me, but the money was decent. But something changed in my life where I was out in downtown San Jose one night, and I was sort of harassed by police officers, and I needed help what to do after this experience. And so this nonprofit organization called Silicon Valley Debug helped and supported me. And I was fresh out of college with a degree in production. And this media organization, this community media organization, needed somebody with my skills and background. This was still when we were doing like analog video. YouTube wasn't around yet. It was just about started. And I was there for 10 years. This organization actually gave me a lot of the preparation where I'm at now. So getting to build and organize with community, getting to help communities tell their story. And as a media maker, I really wanted to tell the stories of my community. I know a lot of my colleagues went to Hollywood or went to Los Angeles to pursue directing, acting, writing. I really wanted to focus on telling the stories of my community. And again, Create TV being a public access television outlet is exactly that. It gives a platform to anyone who wants to get a television show in your city. So throughout college, I was actually also publishing a 30-minute television show, or broadcasting a 30-minute public access television show. Sort of had my hands in a little bit of everything. And 10 years later, after graduating, I'm back where I started. Create TV now is I get to do a little bit of everything. I was sort of just like an editor and a producer for many years, and that I felt that was a really great something that I like to focus on. But I know I also have built a network. I know the sort of the Silicon Valley fairly well through organizations and some leaders, and I'm just excited to be in this position because I also want to continue giving leaders and communities a platform to be heard. And at this moment right now, 3 months into this, a lot has changed, but we're still focused on, being an outlet for communities to engage using resources that are easily available. That's me.
Thank you, Fernando, and thank you everyone else for sharing. So, as we heard, I think, career paths have taken people in different directions, and sometimes not what everyone kind of expected, and different ways in how people landed their current role, whether it was through networking, or it was a little more happenstance, or it was something that they were already planning. But definitely seeing that it's not always linear. So we're going to move on here to the next question. So question number 3. What were the challenges and obstacles you had to overcome as you pursued your education or your career, and how did you overcome them? And for the following questions, I'm just going to kind of open it up to all the panelists, but you know, anyone that would like to chime in and respond to that question, you can do so by kind of raising your hand, and then your virtual hand, or just even your physical hand, if I can see the video here. And feel free to kind of respond to that. Lynn, go ahead.
I cannot find the virtual hand, by the way.
I know.
It, like, disappeared. So I'm like, I'm like,
we'll just do physical hands.
So I think definitely, like, when you think about the challenges of like being a photographer, one of the biggest things is that, you know, I would say it's 50% portfolio and like actually having like both technical skills and also, you know, being able to create something that somebody looks at and gets feelings from it. But also the other 50% is honestly running a business, is working with clients, is communicating with clients, is creating a brand. And a lot of that, I think, is what photographers tend to struggle with, because a lot of times, you know, if you're creative, you don't necessarily always like that part of it. But it is really important for being able to run your own business, for being able to get clients, to get referrals and things like that. So I'd say that's definitely one of the biggest challenges people tend to run into, and things that I usually tell a lot of people is learning how to run a business, because it does make a huge difference. Like, there are so many photographers out there, and I think being able to run is what I like to say a sustainable business, one that you can run and be able to feel confident in the income that you make is really important. And especially because I know we get the cliche of like starving artists, you know, studying art or doing art as a career usually tends to get looked down upon, especially here in the Bay Area. But it is totally possible to be a business owner, to be a creative, to be an artist, and to make six figures, like to make a decent income or good income. And a lot of that comes down to being able to run a business. I think the other challenge that I kind of ran into a lot is just not feeling good enough. I think a lot of times when you are creative, you can feel like things are very personal to you. Like if someone doesn't like something you do, or someone gives you negative feedback. So that's something to really learn how to navigate, is working with clients. And sometimes you're totally correct, and you still have to kind of be like, all right, well, you know, how am I gonna work with them so that they end up with a good experience? And so those things can feel very personal, especially if you take things personally. And that's definitely something kind of to work through in all the different situations that can come up in. And then I think the last thing I want to mention is, I think a big question is always like going full-time. A lot of photographers usually will kind of come into this time where you're like, do I quit my job, or do I pursue this full-time? And that was probably one of the biggest decisions that I had to make, because I'm a very risk-averse person. I really don't like being in a place where I don't know what's going to happen, you know, especially even with what's going on now. There's so many uncertainties. And so for that, I think the biggest kind of advice I can give to that is that, you know, working your way up there can be really helpful rather than jumping full in. Like, I know sometimes it's easy to feel like, oh, you just want to do what you love and really pursue it. But I think for me, it was really helpful to kind of just build my way up there, get clients, build income, have savings. And that really made it a lot easier to decide to go full-time, and it's made it a lot easier as well, even going through times like now where you don't really know what's going to happen. Like, as a wedding photographer, we're very, very affected by COVID. And there's so much going on that you're like, if you don't kind of have some kind of safety net, or just something in place where you can feel comfortable doing what you need to do, I think it can definitely be very hard to run a business. And so that's something I usually will suggest, like people who are trying to go full time, is that learning that business side of it and actually like kind of working your way there rather than jumping into it full steam can be a lot easier, I think, when you get there, to be able to build that sustainability, so you're able to do it long term rather than just having like some good years and some bad years.
Great. Thanks, Lynn. Those are great tips, especially as you mentioned right now, you know, given the situation and being your own entrepreneur, having that safety net for those kind of emergencies, especially those unprecedented times that many of us don't expect. So anyone else that would care to kind of chime in to this question here? I see Ray's hand. Go ahead, Ray.
Okay, so, you know, I agree a lot with Lynn, and would encourage everyone to consider the pathway to their career, it doesn't matter what you do, as you are running a business. You have to think very strategically in that way, as you would if you were a business owner or an entrepreneur, in order to accomplish the goals that you are wanting to accomplish. I would not say necessarily that there is one right way to run a business, but also accomplish your goals. But having that frame of mind that your life, your career is a business, and you are taking steps, strategic steps to accomplish it, I think will help you a lot in just organizing yourself and keeping yourself on the right path to accomplishing whatever your goals are. So whether or not you're an artist, whether or not a musician, photographer, whatever you're doing, I think if you maintain that state of mind, it's gonna help a lot, no matter what the challenges are. For me as a musician, especially the early part of my career being in New York, which is heavily saturated with musicians. And we all went to Juilliard and we all went to Manhattan School, you know, we all went to the same schools. And so what separates us? And establishing that sort of brand and what makes you stand out is a big challenge. And again, I think that anything that any of us say today really applies. You know, I can speak from the musician standpoint, but anything I say could absolutely apply to whatever you want to accomplish. Just want to sort of preface that. Anyway, so that's a big challenge. And for me, overcoming that was just by doing things. Not waiting for opportunities, but going out and making it happen yourself so that you can find that identity that you're looking for. Don't just wait for it to fall in your lap. The one thing that I would say, the last thing I'll say, I would not necessarily agree that there people look down on artists. I wouldn't agree with that. I know that this stereotype absolutely exists, though, and I would absolutely advise everyone to not get plagued by that thought. Stand strong and be true to who you are as an individual, as an artist, whatever it is, as a creative, and people will admire what you do. It's just about how you present it.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray, for sharing. So I know we are running a little bit behind on time here as we're close to 4:20, and we wanted to at 4:30 kind of open it up for student questions. So what I'm going to do for the next couple of questions we'll have, I'm going to ask if maybe like 2 or 3 participants can share, and then as I see you raise your hand, I'll kind of call out on you. And what I'll ask of our kind of student attendees, if let's say, for example, this question that I just posed of overcoming challenges, if there was a panelist that you really wanted to hear from, say one of the other panelists that didn't get to share, please kind of put that in the chat box. Feel free to say, you know, if you would like one of the panelists to really answer to this question, and during the student Q&A, we'll kind of bring that up again. I just kind of want to make sure that we do have enough time for the student questions, as this time again is for you all to get the most out of it. So that being said, I'm going to move on to the next question here. So question number 4, what are the key skills one needs to be successful in your field? And how can students best build these skills while in college? And then I'll just have any of our panelists that would like to respond to that question. You can raise your hand. Russell?
Hey, so yeah, key skills. This is a huge one for artists. Our professors had always told us about learning the basics, and it's a huge thing. You need to make sure if you're going into something as far as art, there is going to be a lot of competition, and that you really keep up with those what they call basic building blocks. So like your drawing skills and you know, knowing about lighting and perspective and all those things. No matter what profession that you go into, though, in the arts, there's always those core fundamentals that you really want to make sure that you have nailed down and honed in. And then after that, you can kind of go and broaden your scope and, you know, be a little bit more creative with the way that you approach things. And in school, the best way to do it is just to really hunker down and really focus on your assignments, or take it the extra mile. You know, don't just do the bare minimum, really kind of try and have fun with stuff and push yourself, you know, not necessarily in a way that is going to beat you down, but more of a fun, exploratory way, you know, kind of seeing what you can do and what you can accomplish.
Thank you, Russell. Would anyone else like to add? Jasmine?
Yes. I wanted to share some of the key ones for my field of marketing and comms, because I think it kind of transcends, you know, industries, and that's really networking and relationship building, as well as, you know, writing skills and communication skills. But I would say the best way to do that in college is to just be out there in terms of networking. And I think this question is going to come up later, but networking is super easy. Go to your, you know, student orgs that are, you know, major related, or join social groups or anything like that, where you can meet people that are like-minded, that you can exercise that skill with. Communication, I think, is super important. We need to be able to communicate. I think in every field, I think we just communicate a little differently. And then I think the last one is really relationship building. How do you build those relationships and maintain those relationships? Because they can get you jobs, they can give you referrals, they can end up being a really big part of your career and your journey.
Thanks, Jasmine, for sharing. And I agree. I think those, what we call transferable or soft skills, are super key in any industry. As you mentioned, communication, building your networking and relationships, that can also be, you know, advantageous in the job search as well. So again, due to time, I'm gonna move on here to kind of the next question. So question number 5, what are the best ways for students to network in this field? And kind of, Jasmine, you touched up on this already a little bit, but, you know, specifically like any professional associations, meetups, conferences that any of you would suggest for students to network in your field. Anyone care to share? Fernando?
Yeah, so at least from my experience at San Jose State, it being sort of a commuter school, right? A lot of folks are coming in from the surrounding cities, commuting to San Jose State, getting their education, and then obviously returning back to most likely, you know, their work or their families, you know, responsibilities. But I would like to offer as a suggestion for students who spend a lot of time on campus or are looking to get involved in networking, is to get off campus, and not, you know, just as much as you can get lost in all the departments in the student union. You know, there's so many resources, there's so many great groups you can go and knock on a door and ask questions. But not too far away from school there's so much going on. And let's say you're interested in the arts and the music, there is you know, an amazing art community buzzing 2 blocks away on South First Street. You know, for those students who are interested in like theater, we have some amazing theater companies right down the street. And specifically, you know, there are theater groups for, you know, other like niche, you know, it might be that you want to get involved in, you know, teatro, or for example, like theater, guerrilla theater, or maybe there's, you know, you want to get involved in the arts or teaching theater. There's after school programs down, you know, in local schools, underserved communities, looking for people to, obviously this is a way to build your resume. I'm just offering that every experience that you try to get into, try to find a way for it to land on your resume as some kind of opportunity to show that you're, you know, dedicated, that you're punctual, that you can take on different responsibilities, that you have, you know, you sort of can lead as well. So join leadership groups, and even possibly if there's an idea that you have, go ahead and start it now, that while you're in college, you'll have an advantage. You have a community there to tap into of students of a particular demographics that's important. I've met a lot of people who become very successful right out of college because they have a momentum going. If you wait till after, you sort of have to deal with everything else, getting jobs and becoming an adult. You know, I got this great experience by starting a music festival, but it was because on campus I was organizing music and no one else in San Jose was organizing a music festival geared towards Latino, you know, sort of Latin alternative music. It was because I stepped off of campus and I looked out to what else was happening, and I learned that in San Francisco and Oakland and San Jose had a thriving community, and all I had to do was tap into that. So explore your community, get off campus if you can. It's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Fernando. And that's great advice. I think sometimes we also get, which is great, you know, we want to participate in campus culture, but also kind of forget that there's a lot also going on off campus, and lots of companies, organizations that, you know, we can attend events to stay connected as well and network. So anyone else care to maybe briefly share something else? Ray?
I'll be quick. I mainly want to just amplify what Fernando said, which is to not wait. Don't wait for school to be done. Go out and make things happen yourself. It's the best way to meet people who are also doing that, but it's also the best way for you to, as soon as school is done, have things to do. Look up fellowships and leadership programs, as Fernando said. There's one here in the Bay Area called the Multicultural Artist Leadership Institute, which is affiliated with the School of Arts and Culture. It looks like Fernando might be an alumnus, which I also am an alumnus of the program. As well as I've contributed to a lot of some of the curriculum that is being offered to the students, or they're not really students, they're professionals, the fellows rather. It's a great resource for you to also open up your minds and horizons beyond your personal passions, which will only inevitably open up more opportunity for you as you pursue professional lives.
Thank you, Ray. And then Jasmine, I know you had your hand raised too. Would you like to add to this? What are best ways for students to network in your field?
Yeah, I'll touch on it very, very quickly. So I suggest those are great tips. Go off campus and explore, and also take advantage of what's offered to you on campus. There's a lot of leadership opportunities that I think, again, transcends any industry, and I think can teach you a lot about yourself and how to be a better professional. I was involved in Associated Students and orientation and did all these things just to build myself up as a better leader and a better professional. And you meet so many people through those professional societies, through those organizations. So just take advantage of the resources that are around you.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to move on now to question number 6. Thank you all for sharing. So for question number 6, what would be your advice to students who are unsure of what they want to pursue, either major or career-wise? Did family, friends, or society have an influence on your decisions? And how did you navigate this? Maybe if we could hear from some of the other panelists, if any of you would care to share for that question, raise your hand. Russell?
So yeah, this was a huge one for me because, like I said, I didn't realize that what I am doing now was even a career choice until I was already in college. The biggest thing for me was, you know, finding my way or kind of stumbling to where I got to. It was just kind of me sitting back and doing what I really enjoyed. Not necessarily being lazy or anything, but, you know, realizing that I have a skill set and kind of going in and honing that skill set. And then later on, kind of going in and fitting that skill set into something that can be done for work. Obviously, you know, you don't want to go into something that's not going to make you good money, you know, or that you can't really climb up a ladder on. But you want to be able to look around and realize and look at yourself, you know, through kind of a third person view and say, you know, what are my best qualities? What are my best skill sets? And what can I do, you know, that is going to be enjoyable for me, that can still, you know, make me money and I can make a career out of. My dad actually wanted me to do a business degree of all things, but I was stubborn enough and I knew that if I was going to go into the arts, I was going to go in it, you know, 110% and really make sure that it was going to happen. So I think if you guys have that mindset, you can kind of, you know, look at yourself, understand yourself, and pick and choose wherever you'd like to go.
Thank you, Russell, for sharing. I think, yeah, oftentimes some of us might experience parents having a different idea of what career path they would like for us, but important for us to kind of assess our own interests, values, skills, while kind of looking at what might be the best fit for us, while, you know, having those conversations with family as well. Anyone else that would like to add to that question? Lynn?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think my family ever necessarily said like, don't pursue art, but I think they have a similar mindset of like, oh, maybe business, you know, is a good idea. I think a lot of us probably run into that a lot. And I think in some sense, definitely I can see where they were coming from. Like obviously running a business, a lot of those skills can be really helpful. But also you can learn a lot of it as well if you're willing to put in the work and the effort to learn on your own. It doesn't necessarily have to be your major. And I think another important thing is just knowing that it's okay to try different things. And it's good to try different things. I think, you know, you're going to do a lot of different things in your lifetime, and you don't have to necessarily think that the one thing you do is going to be the one thing you do forever. You know, obviously I was a counselor when I was doing photography. I was doing graphic design on the side. I actually did a little bit of event planning. I did some floral design. So it was a lot of different things before I actually kind of really narrowed down what I really, really wanted to do and what also played to my strengths, but would actually be something sustainable that I could do as a career. So I just encourage, you know, everyone to try different things and not necessarily think something's out of your reach, but to also put in the work and effort to actually like look into it, to research it, and to really try it out like for real, and not just like being like, oh, you know, I'm just going to try it and see. But, you know, put in that time and effort to do it, and then see how that goes from there.
Great tip. Thanks, Lynn. And I completely agree. I think oftentimes we sometimes get that pressure of I have to choose the perfect career and stick with it the rest of my life, when we know that people venture off into different career paths. Sometimes they, you know, make a career change, and that's perfectly normal. And, you know, we see it more often nowadays too. I think, Fernando, you might have had your hand raised. Did you want to briefly add something to that question?
Yeah, and there's an amazing amount of resources out there. When I was recently applying for this position, you know, going onto these sites like LinkedIn and Indeed.com, you are building your network. Everyone is sharing their profiles across platforms, and so you're able to also build people who know you, and you might be surprised who you know that works in a particular company. And I'm learning a lot that on top of being skilled and have the resume that shines, it's also great to have a connection of someone who works inside the company that you are trying to work at. I learned that right off the bat. Also, another thing, you know, people tend to think right fresh out of college, you'll take the first job, but also, you know, sort of buckle down and know your worth and research what you should be making right off the bat. And people will negotiate with you sort of back and forth on what you need to make, because we are living in one of the most expensive places in the world, and it is possible to continue to live here and pursue your dream career. Just going back to those websites again, if you find the right company you want to work for, you can actually pull up their profiles. You can look at each position there and the requirements and sort of the necessary skills, and you'd be surprised how that alone can also push you and to learn what it takes to, you know, sort of join the workforce, especially around here in the Silicon Valley, where there's a lot of media positions. I realized that I could be working in the tech sector as well. A lot of the skills I have transfer over to, you know, a media position. So just think about also, as much as you want to get into the corporate world, there's also the nonprofit sector that also takes on people with many of the skills I'm getting to hear about today.
Awesome. Thank you, Fernando, for sharing. And then I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question here, and last question for the facilitated Q&A. So our last question, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to students to prepare for the workforce? Feel free to raise your hand if you would like to contribute to that. Ray?
Essentially, it's something I've said already, and some of us have said, but don't wait for school to finish, to find your work. Start early, because especially, again, any career, there's a lot of trial and error associated with what we're trying to do in building careers. And if you wait too long, you're going to be experiencing that trial and error during more crucial times where you don't have that kind of cushion of being in school to fall and pick yourself back up. So that would be, you know, don't wait. Go ahead. Just don't be afraid to just go. Make it happen for yourself and start early.
Yes, thank you. Go for it. Anyone else that would like to add to that question? Jasmine?
I think Lynn had her hand up first. I don't know.
Okay. Sorry, I'm like trying to like look at the different, it's a little, Lynn, we'll have.
All good, Jasmine. I think there's a reason we always say network, 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 and I want to emphasize that because it truly is super important for, I think, two reasons. One, because networking can really help you learn a lot. Learning from professionals of what it's actually like in the field, learning about what, you know, things they wish they had known before they had gotten into it. For me as a photographer, I think one of the biggest things I've learned with networking is actually all of that business stuff that, you know, isn't usually necessarily taught in school, or there's not a lot of easy ways to get that information. I've actually gotten them a lot from Facebook groups. So a lot of groups online where a lot of creatives come together. I know there's groups for photographers, but also groups for like small business owners, for like people who do like Etsy shops. So lots of different things out there. I'm sure there are ones for pretty much every niche out there. And that's a great place to just learn and to absorb a lot of information that's very specific to different areas that you might want to go into. And then also just, of course, networking to build a business is super, super helpful. Probably about half of my clients are from referrals. And so I think that's really helpful. But even if you're not running your own business, probably if you're going for like a regular job, you've probably heard this before, but that a lot of job leads come from referrals as well. So no matter which route you go, networking will be super helpful to you. And so I would always recommend those being definitely something you want to do in college, but also after college as well.
Definitely. Thanks, Lynn. And Jasmine?
Yeah, so mine is pretty cheesy. Mine is just breathe. Because I think sometimes it's so challenging to balance what you want to do in your passion projects and also balance trying to make a living and be stable. And I think a lot of state students, so I don't know who's on the call right now, but I dealt with being a first generation student and trying to just make money, right? And so I did grab the first job that came out when I graduated. And, you know, Fernando said is true, like you need to know your worth. And luckily my networking, what Lynn said, kind of found me at a job that I love now and I'm thriving in now, where I get to, you know, still do my passion stuff and still, you know, be stable and financially stable. So I think just breathe. I think life is a process of elimination, especially in my career. You kind of figure out what you want to do more of and what you don't want to do anymore. And I think you learn that with opportunities, with internships, with jobs, and it just keeps going. It's an evolution, and you gotta just breathe and allow yourself to ride that evolution wave in your career. That's it.
Thank you. Completely agree. I mean, I think a lot of it is students going out there, kind of how Ray said as well, going out there, trying things, not waiting. And then through those experiences, you'll kind of eliminate what you like, what you don't like. So some great tips from our panelists here. So that with that, we reached the end of our facilitated Q&A session. And so now I want to allow time for the student Q&A session. And I know some of you have been entering your questions in the chat box, and Sandy has been kind of taking those questions, and some of you might have already gotten those questions answered. Sandy? Sorry. Hello? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna switch over, and I'm gonna kind of stop sharing my screen so that I can pull up those questions that you all students had, and then begin asking those to our panelists. But before I do that, I just wanted to, so this I already kind of mentioned before, as I know you all kind of have been entering your questions there, and Sandy's been tracking those. And then here, just again, our panelists, just as a kind of reminder, if you had any specific questions, either for Russell, Jasmine, Fernando, Ray, or Lynn, or if you wanted to pose that question to all of the panelists. And then before I kind of switch into the student Q&A portion, I did want to just pull this up before I kind of forget. And in case any of you kind of step out after this portion of the event, if we do like to get feedback on our events. So we are asking if you could please complete a short survey by just, I mean, not right now, but if you could jot this down either on your phone or on a pen, you know, on a piece of paper, bit.ly/cc/sjsu panel. And so after the event, you can provide your feedback there, as we'd like to know kind of what is helpful and what you would like to see more of. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen here so I can pull up the questions. Just bear with me for a moment. Feel free to use this time as I'm pulling up the questions. If you want to take a little break, go grab some water, take a little bathroom break.
I actually quickly want to mention for those of you who have questions and we can't get to it, you guys can always connect with me, and I'm sure the other panelists too, but you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and you guys can connect with me and talk to me and ask me anything you want there.
Awesome, thank you, Jasmine. All right, I have the questions pulled up here. And so I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of go down the line here. So this question is for Lynn. Lynn, what is the best way to find or improve your skills at photography? What's a good major that can help with photography? And how did you learn about running a business and facing clients?
Yeah, I think definitely practice is good, probably in any field that you're in. Building your portfolio, a lot of it's just kind of going out there and doing it, right? Like you don't have to be an expert, and no one really is an expert, but just go out there and practice your skills, try different things. If it doesn't work out, you try something else. And that's true when you're starting out and when you're already in the field too. Like you're still trying new things and kind of experimenting. If you want to photograph people, ask people to model for you. So there's lots of ways to just like actually build your portfolio. I would just say you just kind of want to go out there and do it. I think major wise, I would say most people I know don't actually, like they haven't actually studied photography, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't study photography as a major. I think, each person kind of has their own path of how they get there. For example, I know like one photographer who's quite well known in our industry who actually studied marketing, and her like whole business model, of course, photography wise and portfolio wise is really good. But I can also tell that it was her marketing degree that actually got her where she is today, and a lot of it because of how she knew how to build a brand. And so those are all things that can be really helpful. So I don't necessarily think there's a specific major that you should or shouldn't do, but just kind of knowing how you're going to actually use it in your career can be very helpful. And like I said, a lot of people don't actually do jobs in their major either, but a lot of times the things you learn can be transferable either way. And then I think the last question on running a business thing I mentioned a little bit was like joining Facebook groups, which has been really helpful for me. I spent like my first few years just kind of reading so many different threads from people just asking questions. Like basically, you've got a bunch of photographers who are just asking things like, my client is facing this problem or said this to me, or I don't know how to, run my Instagram. Does anybody have recommendations on how to build a brand on Instagram? And then people will just respond. And so you can really learn a lot about that through Facebook groups, probably online as well. There's lots of resources online, but I think Facebook is one of the easiest ones, and it's free as well. And I know there are like workshops and conferences and things as well, but I would definitely say as a student, I think going for those free resources are definitely a good route, and honestly can be really, really helpful over even sometimes paid workshops. And if you need like information about specific ones, you can always reach out, to me, and then I can just kind of link you all of those.
Awesome, great tips, Lynn. Facebook groups where you could kind of learn more about other professionals in the field as well. So I'm going to move on here to the next question, and this question is for all panelists. The question is, do any of you have tips for finding internships or jobs with the current situation going on worldwide? So I know this is probably something that is in many of our students' minds and concerns. Any tips that any of you may have for finding internships or jobs given the current situation? Russell?
Hi. Yeah, I actually think this is kind of a unique and good opportunity, especially for artists. There's been so many companies that have put out different softwares and learning tools and tutorials and those kind of things. Even just generic tutorials about how to, build a business or something. And this is kind of a great time to catch up on some of that learning, you may not have had time for. Also, I would like to say that there is a bunch of sites. I know specifically a couple ones for artists. There's like ArtStation. There's, if you do, more physical arts, there's Etsy. There's all these other things. There's so many like online places where you can kind of put your stuff out there, get your name out there, that are huge right now. And people are still getting freelance work through those sites. So I think it's a good time to kind of find those online resources where you can go out there and put your work out or get your name out there, or even, look for like internships in the future, digital internships, or just mentorships, reach out to some people now. A lot of that stuff can be done online, and I think it's a great time for that.
Awesome, thanks, Russell. Anyone else care to? Jasmine?
Yeah, so my company works in the space of giving, the gig economy and working with freelancers. So there is hope out there. There are jobs or companies that are hiring. And I say the best way to make use of this time, because as Russell said, it is a very unique but very kind of cool time for you to brush up on some skills like your resume and your LinkedIn, start working on them and polishing them. And my company is actually offering free resume and LinkedIn review for those who are in the marketing and communication space. So if that's you, you can message me on LinkedIn and we can talk further. But it's a great opportunity to learn new skills. LinkedIn, there's a lot of power on there. So if you go, they update this list of the companies that are hiring. I think they update it daily, but they have a running list of all these companies of different types of jobs. And you can kind of reference that. And that's a great way to start. Reach out to people, set up virtual coffees, join a mentor program, or start talking to people, start building those relationships.
Awesome, thanks, Jasmine. Anyone else with, Ray, I see your hand.
Really quick, and it is aligned with what Jasmine was just saying. But essentially, don't be afraid to ask too. If there is a job that interests you and they're not necessarily publicly announcing that there is an open job, it doesn't hurt for you to just ask them if they happen to be hiring. I think that you'd be surprised who is hiring, considering what's going on now, mainly because a lot of groups are having to restructure their workforce, and having everything be online is overwhelming a lot of people. And so they could be looking for extra hands to help out. And the worst that will happen with asking is they'll say they're not hiring and you don't have a job that you didn't have to begin with. So there's no harm in just asking different groups and companies if they happen to be hiring.
Great, thank you for sharing, Ray. And I think I saw Fernando's hand as well. Is that right?
Jasmine's hand went up first, I think.
Okay, Jasmine.
Thank you. Sorry, I wanted to say one more thing to give everyone kind of these glimpses of hope, is that we've been seeing a lot in the industry that they're hiring more freelancers than they are full-time employees. So if you want to, there are jobs out there. The problem is right now is that a lot of corporate companies especially can't get headcount. They call that basically full-time employees. So they can't get budget for these full-time 40-hour-a-week people, but they are hiring contractors, and that can be you. So just wanted to give you some hope.
No, good point. Fernando?
Yeah, sorry, Jasmine, not to counter what you're saying, but the 40-hour work week and job protection, job benefits are really important to some, healthcare and being able to plan for your future. The gig economy is also making money off of people's free, there are no protections if COVID was to happen, and then all of a sudden you're left, not having prepared for this. So just my comment to the other sort of references, the workforce of people coming out of college is so highly skilled and so prepared to enter this current moment. Being able to do TikTok videos or Facebook, LinkedIn accounts, just being savvy and being able to be technologically literate, you're already you have an advantage over a huge portion of this workforce. So I would also think about knocking on some doors where people are feeling like they need to be updated, they need to be sort of brought to this current moment. So I think a lot of you also just think about what skills you already have mastered and where you can use them well. And internships could be from a corporate setting to a small business as well. Even those can be, really great opportunities to grow and learn and, again, grow your network.
Thanks, Fernando. And I see what, with the concern you mentioned in terms of obviously, our students want to eventually find a secure, full-time with benefits kind of role. I do think though that sometimes for students that are looking to get entry-level experience or maybe looking to get their foot in the door, maybe doing like a contracted position might be a good option in terms of, you know, getting into that company that they're interested in, getting some entry-level experience. And then as they network with professionals in that field, maybe they go on to secure more of a part-time or full-time role where they do have, you know, more of that security and benefits, especially for those more competitive companies. But yes, I do see what you're saying. I mean, we've heard of some of those concerns too with the contracted kind of work, but could be a good way to get some entry-level kind of experience.
Sandra, you're on mute.
You're muted.
Oh, sorry. Was I muted the whole time? What was the last thing I said? Did I say moving on to the next question? Okay. Okay, moving on to the next question, which is similar to kind of what I just posed. But I think, I'm not sure, and maybe the student that posed this question in the chat can, if I'm misinterpreting this question, feel free to kind of in the chat include or clarify. But the question was, any advice for people as they improvise with their business ventures due to current events? And I'm not sure if this is maybe meaning more for those that are like, have their business already, how you're kind of maneuvering that and you know, moving forward with your business, given the current situation. I'm not sure if that kind of was a question. If not, please feel free to clarify in the chat. But anyone that would like to respond to that? Lynn?
Yeah, I mean, definitely being in this industry, maneuvering what it means to kind of be in COVID-19 and to figure out how that affects your income and kind of what that looks like is really tricky. I know some photographers have gotten jobs at like, you know, Whole Foods, right? Like that's, you know, something that sometimes, you know, you can definitely choose to do that as well, as you have to be kind of flexible at times. I know some people have gotten into more like virtual work. So like doing social media for other kind of businesses. Like I know there's people who outsource editing, who outsource blogging, who outsource Instagram. And so those are all definitely things you can do without actually being there in person. So a lot of people are kind of navigating that and kind of maybe pivoting toward that. But other than that, also a lot of people are just using this time to build their business too. And just, you know, if you're a student, you know, it's a great time to build your portfolio, to create your website, to create your brand. So it's perfect time, you know, you're at home, to look into all that and start really working on that and to really concentrate on that. So that's what a lot of photographers are doing as well, is like, oh, they've been wanting to rebrand forever and never had the time. Now's a great time to do it. And then also continuing to also kind of look forward as well. I think we all have to kind of keep going and look forward with, you know, hope and not to just get so down about it, because it's easy to do that. And we have a lot of days where we feel really depressed about what it kind of looks like. But trying to hold on to that of like, we're going to get out of this. It's going to be okay. And, you know, we'll figure out ways to kind of make it work as we need to. But also just supporting each other throughout. So I always recommend, like, you know, reaching out to people who are in the industry or reaching out to people, you know, because it's a lot easier when you have other people going through it too, than to go through it alone.
Great tip, Lynn. I think especially right now, as you mentioned, just given the time, I think students using this to develop their brand, polish their resume. If you're working on a website or your portfolio, use this time. And if you need support with that, schedule an appointment with a career counselor that can review your resume or help you with your portfolio. I had to plug that in there. Anyone else that would like to add to that question? And then let me just repeat the question in case you might have forgotten. The question was, any advice for people as they improvise with their business ventures due to current events? And if we don't, that's okay. And I think that was the end of the questions. I believe some of the questions that students posed in the chat, some of you might have responded directly to the whole group. I know Russell, I saw some responses that you provided, and students appreciated those responses, as well as Lynn, and some of you shared your LinkedIn profiles, as that was kind of one of the asks of students. Again, if you feel comfortable sharing your LinkedIn profile or your email, feel free to do so. I think most of you did already. Oh, one last question here that I saw come up, and this is for all the panelists. The question is, I wish to do video editing, and I was wondering, how would I get footage to build my portfolio? Should I also do cinematography? Anyone that will? Okay, I saw Fernando's hand, and then we'll go with Russell after.
I would say get out and shoot. Just go and Create TV, the organization, sort of see back here. We offer editing classes, access to cameras, also experience to television studio equipment. We're a very sort of capital heavy organization, so we continue to update and upgrade our equipment. So you'll have sort of a knowledge of cutting edge technology. But this is a resource that is underutilized, I believe, on campus. Not enough students know that there's a community access television station, one of the largest in California, a few blocks away. And again, a great resource for students to get their hands on equipment, get their hands on live television experience. And yes, for your portfolio, just start collaborating with people and keep asking questions. I think there's so many resources online, and there's also some free sites with you can actually purchase content and cut it up yourself if it has free rights. I think Russell was next.
Yes, thanks, Fernando. Russell?
Yeah, that is perfect, Fernando. You covered half of the stuff I was going to say for sure, so that's awesome. But I was also going to mention too, I roomed with another artist in college, and I had some friends who did video editing and stuff, and we always collaborated on projects. And it's a great time right now. If you know someone who is shooting a film or just does film stuff on the side for fun, reach out to them, and you can maybe collaborate on the project, or look for some small little groups or something that are going to start a film project and maybe offer up your time. I think that's a great way to do it, and that's another great way to kind of broaden your network of people that you can work with in the future. Maybe they'll get a job somewhere and you've done some great video editing for them, and that's an in right there. So yeah.
I also like Lily's response about community colleges. It's a little more economic way to learn, sharpen your skills, and not have to pay sort of the cost of a four-year university. And there's amazing tutorials offered as well through various platforms. And we have Adobe right in our backyard. You have some great organizations that work on media that will likely take you on as an intern if you want to learn. And the communications department teaches editing. The radio, television, film department teaches editing. You should actually enroll in one of those classes. I think there's even a summer course they offer.
Great, thank you all for those tips and advice. Any other questions that we have from students? We're now a little bit past 5, but I think we got all the questions, unless there's a last minute question from the group chat. Okay.
Looks like there was one from Pallavi.
Oh, yes, sorry, I missed that. Thank you. So the question was, I was wondering how COVID is affecting your work and businesses. How are you coping with it and making the most use of the situation? I know we kind of, Lynn, you sort of touched up a little bit on this, kind of advising students to use this time to develop their brand, but anyone else that would like to, or even Lynn or someone else that would like to add? Ray?
So for me, at Santa Clara, I have had to bring all my courses online, which has been pretty intense. But beyond that, my musician life, all of my performances were canceled, which is insanely sad. I was supposed to be in Lebanon and Cairo and New York, in Mexico, performing and teaching, and they were all canceled. How I and how a lot of musicians and other artists have been sort of adapting is by bringing their creative work online. There's a lot of live streams happening. I think that the opportunity to showcase what you can do online is, this is the best time to do it because everyone else is. And no one's being apologetic for it, so you don't have to either. So it's something that I'm doing now, is doing concerts online when I'm asked, and that's how I've been managing.
Thank you, Ray. Anyone else would like to add a question?
Just check out Create TV because we're doing classes on editing regularly. We'll be launching monthly classes. So just an invitation.
Awesome. All right. Well, if any panelists that have any last minute like tidbits they'd like to add, or something they didn't mention that you didn't get a chance to. Okay. Well, thank you all, Lynn, Fernando, Russell, Jasmine, Ray. Thank you for your time, for being with us during this virtual panel event. And we had a great student turnout and students asking some great questions, and you all sharing some great tips and advice with our students in pursuing different career paths and how to kind of best navigate that, and even just given the current situation as well. So thank you again for your time, and thank you to the students for all of you who attended with us today, this afternoon. We hope that this was helpful to you all and that you were able to kind of take some helpful tips, information, maybe figure out some next steps along the way. And just as a last, just something I want to mention, last two things, if you could, I know Stephanie shared in the group chat, if you did not get a chance to do so, if you can please fill out the Google form just to let, so we can track attendance for today's event. And then last thing, I'll just kind of pull up in my screen here again, the survey link for today. So that if you didn't get a chance to kind of jot that down, either on a piece of paper or put that in your phone, to please do so. Again, sorry, let me share my screen here really quick. The link is bit.ly/ccsjsu generic. If you could please take a couple of minutes after to complete that short survey. Maybe I'll just type that in the chat. That's easiest. Okay, there we go. You can find that bit.ly link in the chat. So again, thank you to our panelists and to our student attendees, and hope you all have a great evening today, and that you're all staying safe and healthy during these times, and finding some, hopefully ways that you're kind of coping in healthy ways, and finding, using this time maybe to your advantage, whether it's to finding this extra time to maybe build your brand, to attend webinars like today, to even network online with professionals or join groups or associations, and figuring out those next steps. So thank you all again, and have a good rest of your evening.